Good afternoon. Welcome to whatever day quarantine you are. For me, it's C+2. The way I'm coding it since we've been out of school, quarantine, I'm gonna do C plus whatever day is. So Wednesday was the last day we had school. Many of you know there's some school districts still out there going, but inevitably I think it'll be no school districts going. Now, so obviously Corona, I'm not gonna dwell the whole time on that because, well, I think we're all sick and tired of hearing about Corona. But it's really the first time in 100 years or so that we've had a major quarantine or just social distancing, as some will call it now. And it was in the time period, it was called the Spanish flu. I mean, we can call it the pandemic now if you want of 1918 to 20, but in that period, it was called Spanish flu. Whether it was good or bad, I'm not going to get into that right now. And rewriting it to a different name from what they actually called it then. That's revisionist history, don't do that. So I will refer to it as the Spanish flu because that's what it was originally called. Anyway, but it's really the first time in 100 years that we've had that. And in fact, I saw on the Twitter world of another teacher whose student tweeted them, showed them an article from a local town here about the city taking measures and the school taking measures of ending this. I don't know if it was ending or if it was just like taking some time off from school because of the Spanish flu. And it specifically said Spanish flu. But the biggest thing that's kind of crazy about this is just it's going to have a social, a school impact. It's going to have an economic impact, and I don't know. There's nothing that can really pair what it's going to show in history. The Black Death, in the 1300s, mid 1300s, maybe close. I don't think you'll have as much. One fifth of the world's population dying, but you're definitely going to see that death count skyrocket here before too long. History would show that, and all that would dictate that, but we'll see. But just think about the social interaction. One of the positives I've seen is just the amazing of interactions online. You've still got those 25, maybe 15% that are just down on everything. They're negative. They want to do all this, the negativity that we always see on media. But then you got 60, 70% of people that are just trying to have fun and have a good time and in their quarantine and logging it. So focus on that. Don't be the spring breakers. Yeah, I'm looking at you. I'm not even call you millennials, Z generation. You need to knock it off, because if you don't listen to the voluntary curfews, you're gonna have what's happened in New York and California, and that is where they actually issue martial law of sorts and say, by force or by penalty, you're gonna be fined for not listening. So quarantine, take it seriously. It doesn't mean you have to completely not get out. Just be precautious, do the social distancing, get the essentials, don't be out lingering, don't be crowding in. But yeah, the biggest thing you can do is limit your movement as much as possible. Doesn't mean you can't do some basic things, but just be smart, okay? And that, give people their bubble. Like, this is the bubble. We always talk about that bubble. This is the perfect time to practice giving people their space. There's people that like to be up on each other, and there's people that like that bubble. This is the perfect time to do that. So, but yeah, we'll see what happens. I can tell you from the school aspect, a lot of people are asking, we can't mandate assignments right now. And I do appreciate, though some people in the news will criticize Missouri and some of their stances. There might be some more stuff to do, but I do appreciate the state allowing the local level authorities to kind of determine and move us forward on where we're at, and not just mandating a one big blank check. I do think that eventually there'll probably be some things that will be outside of our control, or we may have to, like Kansas has already pulled the trigger, which I think is way too soon. But saying no school for the rest of the year, I do think that hope is very powerful. So if you can have any hope, and things can change in a matter of weeks or a month. And so, I don't know. But what I've done is try to provide resources online through the Google Classroom, which Google is great. Those of you who've used it, those who have not, it's free. And I can make social discussions, assignments, whatever I can put out there, and the kids have access to it. Then they can do it through their smartphones, which is awesome. So we'll see. This is also opening a whole new area and pushing people to this online format that we're just reluctant and are fearful of it. I got my master's completely online, minus a couple visits to the campus. So we'll see. I think you're going to see an upheaval in that. So C+2, we're still all going strong here, but we'll see what happens. Now, enough for the Corona for the most part. I want to move on to some other things. This date in history, March 1345, dealing with the plague that will become the Black Death and everything in 1345. And I think this was kind of geared by the church and some other groups, but Saturn, Jupiter, and Mars are in conjunction or aligned, and they're a cause of the plague epidemic, or that will become a pandemic. So like alignment of the stars of all things produced circumstances they thought in those periods of maybe creating the plague. So not to get all down in the weeds there, but like that's kind of crazy, you know, thinking about the star alignment in this old traditional way that the alignment of the stars could produce the plague. So old medieval thought, but you know, maybe there's no scientific evidence to it right now, but it's something interesting. 1774, the first of the Intolerable Acts is passed by the British government for the Boston Tea Party. You probably heard of the Boston Tea Party. I don't need to go into that. But as a response by the British government, they basically locked down Boston. Kind of like probably is right now. I mean, different context, but Boston's locked down, especially the harbor. We call it the Intolerable Acts, but one of the things that will lead to the American Revolution. 1852, Uncle Tom's Cabin is published. Never read the book, but has a huge impact in swaying Americans' view of slavery. In 1922, the USS Langley is commissioned as the U.S. first aircraft carrier, though it was not built from the scratch as an aircraft carrier. I think it was originally a cruiser battleship, converted to the very first U.S. Aircraft carrier. 1944, we'll talk about Italy a little bit here more in depth a little bit later, but in 1944, Mount Vesuvius, during the Allied push through Italy, will erupt. I had a great uncle who had photos of that eruption, kind of caught everyone off guard. That's where Pompeii is, where a lot of the city is preserved, been there, beautiful place. We actually hit it when it was not 1,000 degrees, just about 80 degrees, so that's good. But Pompeii, at the base of Mount Vesuvius, one of the coolest places you ever visit. But 1944, it erupted to a lot of surprised Allied troops. And then in 2016, as they said, only Nixon could go to China in the 70s. Only Obama could go to Cuba in 2016. And for that brief time, they opened up trade again with Cuba, though that was rescinded with the arrival of President Trump. Okay, now I want to talk a little bit about travel. Obviously, travel is very restricted right now, but a couple tips that I've learned from just traveling when you get ready to travel someday, when this all, abates with the corona and the quarantines and the movement down to travel. The biggest thing when you travel is when you book out, all right now, some of these spring breakers that you've seen the videos, I'm not going to get any more into that, whatever. They're like, well, I'm not going to cancel my trip, man. Okay, be cognitive. So like I know Southwest and some of the airlines have where you can not necessarily get all your money back on flights, but you can move it. There's like change flights, stuff like that. I'm not necessarily going to say insurance is the best bet, but just look at ways you can protect yourself when you book. If it is the insurance, great. If there's miles and stuff that you can just move and switch. When you book, just be cognitive and think about the time of year you travel. And so if you travel in the winter, think about snowstorms. In the winter, think about thunderstorms. Or in the summer, think about thunderstorms. Yes, they can delay you. And then world events that are going on where you're going out in the locations, be watching what's going on. That's also said when you travel, social distancing is a good thing normally when you travel. I've traveled enough through many airports where people are on top of each other and they wonder why people get sick. When you travel, give people their space. If you're in line, you don't have to be right up 2 inches from their back or forward, front, whatever. Give them some space and it'll be okay. And that being said, travel light. And I'm guilty of this. I'm the worst. If I showed you a picture of my basic training AIT when I came back, I had like 8 bags. It seemed like, probably like 4, but it seemed like 8. Travel light. You can check a bag, that's fine. But when you're going through airport and everything, travel as light as possible. You don't need to take 30 different things. That being said, when you have to pull stuff out, whether it be security or whatever, this is a bigger one. These plastic bags, I think we bought this maybe at TJ Maxx or Target, I can't remember, but we found it someplace. They make them half this size as well. We have some half the size. These are great. So you put that in there. Those plastic clear bags, one they can see through for the airport security, and then when you travel, it's easy to get pull stuff in and out. So I'll do more travel stuff later, but encourage you to travel when it comes back on. Okay, I want to talk about Italy. So I talked about analysis of Corona. We did history of this date, travel for T, the charted acronym I use. Italy, I travel a little bit. Italy's been hit hard by the Corona, but I want just a little bit of brief history of it. Obviously, the Romans and all that settled it, but I'm not going to focus on that. It was officially created as a republic in 1861. I think it was more of a constitutional monarchy for a while. They did have a king, but it has been a nation state since 1861. Obviously, World War II went through the rise of Mussolini and stuff. About 62 million people, 62.5 million people. It's a beautiful country. The capital is Rome. and it depends heavily on tourism, and it's a very drier climate. They do grow a lot of, obviously have a lot of wine up in Tuscany. They do have some other exports, but tourism is their big one. So as I talk about travel, if you can travel, I'm planning in 2023 for my trip after this. One of the places I hope to go, if it works out, is to go back to Italy. Northern Italy is more mountainous, where that's been hit the worst. And I can tell you that it's a little bit far in between on things, because it's just, you have the population centers. And Venice has been in the news where the canals for the first time in a long time are crystal clear. They're still polluted, obviously, to some degree, but there's less pollution, less sediment being stirred up, and they're starting to see dolphins enter there in Venice. So Italy, hot, spotlight place to go. I'll do more in-depth stuff eventually, but definitely look at Italy if you want to travel someday once everything kind of dies down. Coffee for the day. Going to the C for Charted again, coffee. Italy coffee. Maybe hard to get here with all the travel and everything restrictions going. One of the best coffees I've ever had is Italy. This is more of an espresso blend that you do in a little shots. But I highly recommend Italy. Get it while it's still out there, and then once everything gets back to normal in the trade, get it. It's a little bit more expensive, but it has a very good quality. It's a very pure taste. Great coffee. I'm gonna make some after this video. And then random today, I want to talk about the Nile area a little bit. So in Egyptian mythology or Egyptian history, and we'll spend some time on mythology at some point, but you have Egypt here. And if you look at Egypt, you have the Nile River. It's one of the only rivers in the world that flows south to north. So it flows reverse of what we think. Now, so, and that being said, what we say is lower is the actual upper part of the Nile River, which is reverse to what we think. And the lower part is actually this up here by the delta. So why I bring that up is when you look at the Egyptian crowns, and I know many of you have seen the Egyptian crowns, pulling up this Egyptian mythology, who's who and stuff, I did find something, and I teach this to one of my Western Civ classes when I teach it every other year, is the crown. So you have the white and the red crown, and that makes this combined crown. And I know if you've watched anything ever Egyptian, you've seen it in the combined crown. The white crown represents, I believe, is the Upper Egypt. So that would be the lower part of the Egyptian river. That was the kingdom that was to the south. The red was the lower, which is the north, reversed to what we all think. And then when King Menes combined the Egyptian kingdoms into one, they created this combo crown to represent both the white and the red kingdoms, the upper and lower. Just a little bit of random fact for the day dealing with Egyptian history. But yeah, good stuff there. If you have questions on that, please let me know. Hopefully we'll do more in-depth stuff, and I might do some more specialized stuff instead of just kind of some sporadic stuff at times like we're doing right now. This is mostly just to give something for people to watch, and kind of random here in my personality as well. But yeah, looking at that charted today, I hit several of them with the acronym. I may look to do some Egyptian stuff. I might look to do some U.S. presidential cabinets. I might look at some disasters and stuff. Oh no, I'm gonna have a lot of free time here coming up on these quarantine days. C+2, we'll see what happens. I hope to have another video out next week. I might pop up some short ones. Check me out on TikTok, 13 minutes, 13's min to midnight. I'll try to do a daily this dated history as much as I can. All that being said, you guys all stay classy in the words of a good man. And I also say in the words of a good journalist from the 1950s, good night and good luck.